Welcome to the collection of the wildest and craziest AITA Reddit stories of all time. From wild betrayals to shocking twists, these tales will leave you questioning who is really in the wrong. Let's dive in together. The first story for this collection is from a stranger angel. AITA for insulting my parents because they allowed my abusive little sister move in with them. I, 30F, have historically had quite the tumultuous relationship, or lack thereof, with both my parents and my younger sister, 25F. We've got the classic angry, violently abusive father with likely undiagnosed autism. Thanks for that genetic gift, Dad. And the neglectful, immature, always high/drunk mother. This was especially true when I was very young, before my sister, M, was born, and the worst had subsided by the time she was about 3, and I was about 8, with an extremely terrifying renaissance when I was about 16 while M was not home. Because I was the oldest child in the house and a people-pleasing autist, I got the brunt of the physical and verbal abuse, while my mother tended to dote on M, and very clearly made M her favorite child. This has been said verbatim on a few occasions. We also have an older sister, E, 38, from our mother's previous marriage who never lived with us, but she is aware of the environment we grew up in. My father was not particularly kind to M, but the abuse was certainly not as severe or long-lasting. All that to say, M has always had emotional regulation issues and a penchant for physical violence and extreme verbal abuse towards not only peers and partners, but our parents and other family members as well. This was a concern I voiced repeatedly over the course of our childhood and adolescence and well into our early adulthood. She makes up for it by, retroactively, instead being doting and juvenile. I do not know if this is intentional. I suppose it doesn't matter. Maybe it does? Who's to say? Up until this past summer, M had been living at our parents' house with her boyfriend, 27M. She had taken a liking to B after he had been shot in an altercation with a neighbor, and she took care of him. This was years ago. He is doing okay now. M had been working at a thrift store. B was unemployed, I believe, but now works at the liquor store. This is relevant later. My parents were not charging them rent or utilities, and M was using my father's car, and eventually they noticed M's behavior had changed. She stopped going to work and became more erratic and violent, and my mother seemed to think she was on drugs harder than weed. We all smoke. This was a fear I have had since my sister found out via ancestry that my father was not her father, and our mother denied it. This was 2 or 3 years ago. When this was discovered, M and I were actually in a great spot as far as our relationship, and she had all my support and resources should she try to find her biological father. She has repeatedly asserted that she doesn't want to know him, which is fine. However, this was clearly a lie she told both herself and others. This past May, right before her birthday, I got a call from my mother. The police were at their house because M had assaulted our mother and pushed her into the corner of a table where she hit her head. M is not a small girl. Her boyfriend had also allegedly brandished a firearm at our mother. He legally has a CC, so they were of course both arrested and hit with temporary protective orders and therefore unable to return home. After they were bailed out, E and I both received streams of horrible texts from M. In a thread with E, she called her a failure and a horrible mother, and a slew of other terrible things, and eventually ended with E cutting her off, as well as forbidding M to see her young children. Meanwhile, I was also subject to text messages wherein M called my girlfriend a man who should beat the shit out of me. My girlfriend is transgender, and I have been abused by a past partner which M knows, and that I should be glad she can't remember where I live, and also I moved LOL. Obviously, I also cut her off. After court, my parents let the TPOs expire and offered M to come back because she and B were living in my dad's car. They refused. M got fired from her job shortly thereafter. Now, I had made it very clear to my parents that I wasn't coming over if M was under their roof. They have seen every text, every threat. So imagine my surprise on Christmas morning when I find out that they are both back in the house, though they weren't currently home. I was dumbstruck. They argued that they felt bad and the baby was homeless. And wouldn't I do the same thing if I had kids? He also didn't want B to lose his job because he is employed by the state. I completely lost it. I'm not fond of my parents to begin with, and don't come over often anyway, because they are extremely right-wing and not very bright, so I got visibly angry and flabbergasted. I told them that they were being foolish and soft, and that the dissonance between how they have always treated us is palpable, and that, even then, M and B under their roof again is unthinkably stupid and frankly unbelievable. Shortly after this, my mother casually mentioned that M had threatened to burn E's house down with the kids inside. When I asked if E knew about this, I started yelling, and I do not raise my voice at my parents. Trauma is because M is obviously dangerous, and what on earth could possibly make them think this was wise or safe or generous? My dad seems to think this was a wake-up call for her, but I strongly disagree considering I've been trying to warn them about her since she was a toddler. And also, she just threatened the lives of 2 infants. Hello? Is anybody home? Hello? I am now extremely low contact with them. I have only ever gone over on holidays to placate them, but they seem to think I'm the one who is being unreasonable and heartless. My extended family apparently agrees with them. You all, is it me? Am I the asshole? What do you even do? OP is not the AH for prioritizing his safety and cutting off contact with his violent sister and enabling parents. In this case, OP's parents and sister are AHs for their behavior, and I would rate them 2.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. As for OP, he is not an AH, and I would rate him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story from Eldon_phone. AITA for not talking to my kid and her physically abusive and violent mom? I, 27M, met the mother of my child at 21. She, 31F, was visiting a mutual friend of ours that summer, and the first time I laid eyes on her, I thought she was beautiful and different. She laughed loud and had a wide smile with nice teeth, brown sugar complexion and southern baked body eye kick. I introduced myself, but she never remembers that. Just that I was on a skateboard the first time she saw me. My boy said he called dibs, which was cool with me. It's not like I knew her or anything. Besides, I'm a skate rat from Jersey. She was out of my league anyways. They eventually start messing around. A couple months go by and we, the friend group, had been hanging out all summer doing what we normally do. Drink, smoke, strag, repeat. I'd been skating every day for at least 5 hours a day, so I'd often find them late at night when I was fried from the session and unwind wherever they were. One night at the mutual friend's house, see previous paragraph, my boy and his girl get into an argument about whether they were official or not. And well, let's just say the contract was null and void. The boys and I left, the girls stayed, and we talked and laughed about what just happened on the way back to my house. The girls probably did the same, but who knows? Eventually it comes to light that he never got to dive in that ocean, and that's basically what's been fueling the fire of frustration that culminated in the explosive argument they had in the house that day. They'd gone on dates, he'd brought her food, bought the wine she likes when we drink, 'cause nobody around us drinks wine. We were low-key alcoholics. My choice is whiskey in case anyone wondered. He thought he had a girlfriend. She thought she had an overzealous homeboy. Either way, they both had nothing at the end. During all that time, see previous paragraph, I had been checking his girl out on the low. Not strictly, but it was hard to deny her appeal. She's actually funny and not a complete idiot when she's sober or buzzed. She has a great taste in music. That's actually what we clicked on the most. We both had a mutual respect for the evolution of Tyler the Creator and had pleasant disagreements about Erykah Badu versus Janet Jackson. These are all things my boy has little to no knowledge of or care for. We'd, his girl and I, often get caught up at the table talking casually about the forementioned subjects often. It came to a point where she'd casually ask about me when I wasn't there because I was out skating, saying, "He's actually pretty cool." That probably sparked the outburst that caused the argument I mentioned earlier. Why's she asking about him and I'm right here? Energy, understandable. Either way, they stopped dating, but we all still hung out regularly. October came, so I spent lots more time with them in the house that we frequent. That meant I spent a lot more time with the girl, who would become the mother of my child. We talked a lot about more than just music now as she really started opening up to me. We found ourselves in increasingly intimate settings, until eventually it was just me and her at my house one night. Well, me, her, and this girl who had given me head the night before. Anyway, we were in my room talking and then kissing, and then before I knew it, she was on top of me moaning loud ass. The girl in the next room, who I'd honestly forgotten about, came barging in upset that, well, she'd been forgotten about. The mother of my child got up, butt naked, turned around and said, "Leave before I make you. I'd gaff about nothing that you're saying to me right now." Even now, as I'm typing this, I can't help but smile because I've never had someone go so hard for me before or since. I fell in love with her right then and there. The next day, she's telling everyone how much she f***ed with me, how she f***ed me, how we're definitely in a relationship, and that was it. My boys heard this and were happy for me. I struggled with girls before this summer IDK WTF happened. It was crazy how it just turned around like that. Except one. No guesses as to who that was. We talked about it, and he eventually conceded that he was with her for the wrong reasons, and it makes sense why she went for my lover boy over him. He was just trying to I was just trying to make a friend and ended up We are not the same. Anyhow, the first 5 to 6 months were pretty normal, but we can't be kids forever, so I had to get a job, and that's when the trouble started. I got my first job at Vans on National Go Skate Day. It was one of the best jobs I ever had, and I miss it sometimes. Only sometimes. She started working at FedEx alongside my boy, who's been mentioned throughout this story, mostly because I had a car and could pick them both up thanks to my schedule, plus the pay was good. I started to notice, though, my girl might have had a drinking problem. She drank every day, not a lot, but every day it was something. Wine, shots, whatever, as long as she could feel it. At first, I didn't care because I smoked weed, and everyone has their vices. Then she started missing work, oversleeping, and eventually got fired. Still not a big deal for me because I was blessed with a house by my parents, so we really didn't need the income, but then I had to blow my money on her habits. Sound familiar? I didn't realize it until it was out of hand, but my girlfriend is an alcoholic. I confronted her about it, and she got naturally defensive. I cared about her, so I really started digging and found out about her trauma from past abuse by her ex-boyfriend. She's running from her problems, which I can relate to, and I vowed to not let her go through that alone. I'm realizing how long this post is right now, so I'll try to cut through the weeds a bit to finish this up in this next paragraph. We moved to a smaller apartment in a different city, so there wouldn't be much temptation to party with our regular crowd, but she would sneak and buy alcohol when I was at work, drink it all so I wouldn't see the bottles, but forget that she would actually be drunk. It was at that apartment when she first put her hands on me. It started with a slap for telling her she really shouldn't drink at all anymore, and it only got worse as I refused to change my stance on things, but I'm not getting my ass whooped by my mom for hitting a girl, so I decided I had to leave her. Wouldn't you know it, as soon as she's about to be out of my life for good, we find out we're expecting a kid. I've always wanted my own family since the one I was born into is scattered like dandelion seeds. At this point, I couldn't leave her, so I ended up in Texas with her. She wasn't drinking, and honestly, I've never been more happy with her than I was for those 9 months. Then Hans was born, and it all went left. She became even more abusive verbally and physically, and I had no one to lean on because all my friends and family were in Jersey. I have permanent dark marks under my eyes where she had been clawing at them, and I can't even think about her now without feeling a mixed bag of fear, love, and anxiety. I miss our kids so much, but I fear that if I get even remotely close to her, Mom again, something really bad is going to happen to me, and I'm honestly terrified. I don't know what to do, or if I should even do anything, and just let my daughter live in peace without me. OP is not an AH for cutting ties with his abusive alcoholic partner. OP's mental peace and well-being are the foremost priorities, but abandoning his daughter is unfortunate. OP must seek legal advice to establish contact with his child. As for scores, I would rate OP 0 and OP's partner 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump on to the next story. From Love Me I Know It. AITA for playing the victim because my ex went on Tinder after we broke up. We had been dating for almost little more than a year by this November. But after my birthday, I broke up with him. It was after an argument where I jokingly asked him to give me attention, and he instead started shouting at me, calling me annoying and such, because he had a tough day with his family. Now the thing is, almost 2 years I had waited for him. Almost 2 years, everything about him was prioritized over everything about me. I won't go into details a lot, But let's just say that the first date he ever took me on was a year into the relationship, and the first flower was on our 1-year anniversary. Apart from a handful efforts he had made for me, I did everything for him. Stayed on calls for 3 to 4 hours on end, motivated him, loaned him money, wrote his college SOPs for him, called around for job interviews, made romantic efforts too, like he would mention a thing he likes in passing, and I'd send it over the next occasion, took his verbal abuses because I had to be so understanding. So basically, I had gone above and beyond. Now I had been a little immature in all honesty, but I just wanted time. He would commonly take 15 to 20 hours for a call back and wouldn't even text me. Or he would go out with friends and wouldn't pick my calls, but would pick theirs, went out with me, etc. I patiently waited for my time, which in his words was going to arrive when I'd leave for abroad this Jan, so around 3 months before it. But in November, I realized it will never come. Throughout the relationship, I had been attached to him over one thing in specific: his loyalty. We hadn't had yet, but did other stuff. I'm a virgin and my parents are strict, so I thought how he must love me so much to have waited so long, even though he was active early on. Now after we broke up, this feeling got reinforced, because whenever the topic of moving on came up, he would say he has no interest in doing so. So I stayed attached and kept doing favors for him. Sending him flowers abroad, kissing him in my bedroom, which was a first for me, sending care packages for his exam anxiety, etc. We used to say I love you and talked for hours and made out when we met. Recently near Christmas, I saw he had Tinder on his phone. When I asked him about it, he said he doesn't owe me an explanation, and after some words left me crying in the mall alone. Started apologizing a few hours later, then started guilt-tripping me that I too went on Tinder last year. I went during a 2-week break we had last year for one evening and told him that very day. Anyway, I gave in. We met a couple of times after that, and he was an absolute dream. But lately, he has started slipping back to his old self. It's been 10 days since I found out, and he keeps telling me to stop making it a bigger deal than it is, and that he has apologized enough. Keeps making jokes, takes hours to call back again, and my mind is making me crazy. I feel disgusted with myself and him. I keep imagining him lying to me to see other women, although he swears he only talked and didn't meet anyone, but I have no way to confirm since he refused to show me the chats. I keep thinking he's lying about that too. Maybe he even already had, or he was probably looking for someone on his trip abroad too when I was sending him flowers. He hid his phone from me on our 1-year anniversary too, which almost led to a fight, but I let it go because I thought I could trust him, but maybe he was hiding it even then. And how long would he had kept up the lie if I wouldn't have found out? What should I do? Do I have no right to be mad at him since we're technically friends? OP is not an AH for wanting transparency from his partner. She is hurt by her partner betrayal of trust for making a Tinder profile while being with OP. OP feelings of disgust and distrust are completely valid, given her partner's behavior and lack of transparency. As for scores, I would rate OP's partner 2.5 and OP 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's now jump onto the next story from loose-object-1980. My 21F on and off boyfriend, 29M, is trying to ruin what I have left of my life. What do I do? AITA? Back in February 2024, I started dating my now boyfriend. He acted normal at first and had a good job. Then we moved to with each other. We were supposed to flip cars together and resell them, so he left his job so he could do independent work since he is really good with cars. Well, the thing is that he didn't work on the cars I invested in. I had inherited money from selling my deceased mother's home, and I was looking to be financially smart. Anyways, the work didn't get done, and slowly more and more, I came responsible for the bills. We had discussed before we moved in that it would be 50-50 with the bills. I repeatedly told him never mind, and just get another job again. And seeing that he was a lot of experience, he always finds jobs easily. However, he begins to make excuses, and slowly, like I previously said, I paid for the rent, groceries, his gas money, his phone bill a few times, the internet, and everything else we share. When he broke his phone, he asked me to buy one for him, on the notion he would pay me back, which he never did. Then I became angry and got into arguments with him about not paying me back and me paying all the bills. He told me that is what girlfriends do, and that when one person is down, the other picks the other partner up. except it had been multiple months, and he wasn't making any efforts to pay half. He also began telling me that all I care about is money, and that I was greedy and money hungry. Of course, this then made me feel extremely guilty, even though I just wanted what was mine from my mother and father and take care of myself. Fast forward, and I tell my cousin to move on because she needed a place to stay with her baby, and she was my best friend at the time. Well, long story short, after my boyfriend and I got into a fight, and I broke up with him and told him to get out of my house because he wasn't paying anything, he proceeded to message my cousin and began lying, saying I was talking badly about her. He was saying that I was complaining that she doesn't do anything in the house when he was saying that. And he was complaining and asking me why she didn't have to have a job, and he did. And he lied and said I said all of things that he said about her to him. I know on multiple occasions I defended her and explained to him that she was a single mother, and I defended her multiple times. Well, he told her the opposite, and she believed him because she hates when anybody says anything about her. There was another situation which we all drank, and we were drunk. During this situation, her baby almost choked, and I was genuinely concerned. We then all went out walking in a not safe area. My boyfriend had said something rude to me, and I walked back home and left them. Well, I was scared because he wasn't coming back, and they were acting reckless, and I was worried about them. And me being emotionally and drunk, I called out Aunt and told her I'm worried because they weren't coming back. Well then, my cousin and boyfriend came back in, heard me being scared, and my cousin took it as I was talking crap about her, when all I told my aunt was that I was worried and that I didn't want to drink anymore. Since that day, I have not drank alcohol ever again. But fast forward, my boyfriend told her I was talking about her, so then they started texting each other behind my back and talking trash about me. He was lying about me saying stuff that I never said. And he was talking about our private life with her as well. Well, next thing you know, they are flirting, and he's telling her that they have so much in common and that he should have met her first, and she had a boyfriend at the time. Yet, she was flirting back with my boyfriend, and she was talking about hanging out with him, and he was talking about her legs and how he was staring at them. I was enraged, and my heart was broken. I had supported him, put up with paying all the bills, and now he was flirting with his ex-girlfriend's at the time, cousin, just to get back at me. I ended up taking him back stupidly because I believed him when he told me he was sorry and told me that he loved me so much, and he took me out for my birthday. I told her to leave my home after she betrayed me, and she moved out about a month and a half ago. My boyfriend and I had been arguing back and forth about him paying the bills when he said he was going to pay half because he had signed the lease too. I was screaming and arguing with him. Yes, I know I shouldn't, and I've been working on staying calm. And he grabbed my mouth and neck and was aggressively manhandling me and telling me to be quiet. I called my aunt screaming and crying, and she did her best to calm me down while I told her what happened. She told me to call the cops and file a report, but I decided against it because I didn't want to be petty, and I also didn't want to do anything that would cause him to become vengeful, because he is, and he really scares me, and I feel as if I have to watch my back. The next day, we got into another argument and fight, and I was screaming. He called the cops, lied to them, and said I poked him with a weapon, which I most certainly did not do and wouldn't do, of course, when I was screaming. He took a video of me reacting to him after he said terrible things. He always acts different around his family and other people. He acts like a calm, cool guy, and that he doesn't do anything wrong around them. As soon as I scream, because he's provoking me, which I shouldn't do, he whips out the camera, takes a video of me screaming, and uses it as proof that I'm a bad, terrible person, and that everything is my fault. Of course, he showed the cops this video. Needless to say, they most likely believed the false accusation solely based on the fact I was screaming. I have not screamed since and threw out anything sharp in my house in the trash, for fear he will accuse me again. I try to tell people what he does, and they don't believe me because he acts so different around others. He makes me feel crazy, like I'm just imagining everything. I had a talk with him about falsely accusing me to the cops, and he literally apologized to me for it and said that he shouldn't have done it. So, he acknowledges that I did not do what he accused me of. My family knew him and his family since they were kids, and they have repeatedly told me him and his family are habitual liars, and they lie all the time. His father also abused his mother physically their whole childhood, and his father abused him and his sisters as well. It is my fault for not heeding their warnings about him, and I wish I never got myself involved in this relationship. I have sworn off of ever dating again, and I'm opting to live by myself and be single for the rest of my life in fear of this happening again. Besides everything else, I have caught him stealing from stores, lying to his family multiple times to their face, lying to me all the time. He's constantly boasting about himself and how hard of a worker he is, and how he does the job better than his co-workers. He constantly talks about how I'm putting him down when I tell him that he's a liar, because I keep catching him lying to me. He's called me ugly, fat, because I gained some weight from emotional eating that I'm trying to take care of now. I already hate how I look, and I hate myself. I always want to improve myself, but I feel like I'm my worst with him here, and I'm stuck on an expensive rental, and I'm worried he won't help pay the bills. He had paid a few months at one point for the rent, but had gotten fired twice from 2 new jobs he had. We also went door dashing together to make money after he got fired, and half of it was my money because I worked for half of it. He drained my bank account, and I'm protecting what's left of it. I bought cat litter for my cat, and he literally got mad at me for using the DoorDash money when I made half of it. I never buy anything like purses or shoes, and it was something my cat needed. He constantly calls me controlling, but he won't let me have money from the DoorDash money. He won't let me talk to my family about him and what he does, and he says I'm crap talking when I do talk to my aunt because I'm so distraught. I've been completely broken, feeling guilty all the time, and depressed. I know I do things as well, and that I'm not perfect or even close to it at all, because nobody is. He makes me feel like the villain in his story. He used to talk about me to my other aunt and my cousin any chance he could. However, I wasn't allowed to talk to my aunt about what was going on. I tried to work on myself because drinking affected me badly, and I quit drinking. I quit saying anything about him to my family, and now I'm trying to stop myself from yelling when I'm mad. I'm exhausted, and he calls me a narcissist and a manipulator and a gaslighter all the time. He didn't start calling me a gaslighter or manipulator until I pointed out when he was doing it. Everything I try to bring up the way he makes me feel or something he is doing that is wrong, he just switches it around and tells me that I do that, and that he doesn't. Every time I say anything, I want out of this situation so bad, but I'm scared he's going to cause so much trouble, pain, heartache, and as many issues as he can to get back at me. I don't know what to do. OP is not the AH, rather, her boyfriend is an AH for being emotionally and financially abusive, manipulating her and lying to others. She has been trying to improve herself and manage the relationship, but he continuously belittles her and drains her resources. So, OP's boyfriend is an AH, and I would rate him 3.5 out of 5 on the AH scale, and OP gets nothing. What do the MacReddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to MacReddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.